Tonight, we get the latest on the growing number of fires and evacuations in Saskatchewan. Indigenous groups in our province say they feel left out as King Charles visits Canada. And we hear from a Saskatchewan nurse who's come home after working in Gaza.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, May 27th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thank you for joining us. The number of wildfires and evacuations in our province is growing rapidly. The Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency is calling it a very aggressive start to the season as strong winds, hot temperatures, and little relief from rain cause flames to move quickly. As of Tuesday afternoon, there were 21 active wildfires in the province. 10 of those fires are not contained. That includes the fire in the Canoe Lake area near Isle La Crosse, which started Monday. Meanwhile, the Denair Beach area, not far from the Saskatchewan-Manitoba border, has 4 uncontained fires. The total number of fires so far this year stands at 205. There were 165 at the same time last year.
I have been running this agency operations for wildfire for 21 years, and this is probably the busiest, most active landscape fire level we've had this early season, for instance, in May. We have had busier years, but sometimes it's in July or late July or into August where we've probably seen more fire. But this early, this concentrated with this kind of weather pattern, not recent have we seen anything like that.
The SPSA says almost every fire so far has been caused by humans. At least 3,000 people have been evacuated due to the fires. The largest one, the Shoe Fire, is burning near Candle Lake, prompting the community to take action. CBC's Jeremy Warren is in Candle Lake with this report.
People in Candle Lake have been told to be ready to leave on short notice. This video from the front lines shows the wildfire moving closer. 2 fires merged overnight, creating a huge inferno about 21 kilometers northeast of the resort village. Mandatory evacuation is likely if the fire gets within 15 kilometers. A massive effort is underway to protect the community, but village officials say they don't have the one thing they really need: permission from the province to build a fire break around the community.
We would need in excess of $1 million to even think about protecting a few subdivisions. So when you think about that, we're trying the best we can to be proactive here at Candle Lake, but we need some help.
The fire chief wants to dig a 100-meter wide fire break as soon as possible.
We'd like to take it down to black dirt, all the way north to Minnewaca, and then we want to go in behind Minnewaca to where another fire break was created years ago. So this is not just a one-time thing. This could protect the whole area of Candle Lake and Paddockwood from a fire approaching from the southeast.
One resident questions why the province hasn't given the go-ahead to build the fire break.
We're waiting around with dozers for somebody to approve a budget or get a permit in place.
A Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency representative in Candle Lake declined to comment, but we posed the question to government officials.
That community right now is not an imminent threat. It is still, definitely a fire in the vicinity. So it's not what we would declare an emergency. So there are requirements when we do mitigation efforts.
Firefighters have been brought in from across the province. So many people are arriving here that some firefighters are sleeping in trucks and tents. Local volunteers are cooking meals for more than 200 people.
I came down in my pajamas to open up the curling rink so everybody had a place to land. And the community has showed up in droves to help and support and feed the crews.
Dry, windy conditions are hampering efforts to fight the fire. The forecast says it's only getting hotter in the coming days. Jeremy Warren, CBC News, Candle Lake.
King Charles delivered the speech from the throne to officially open Parliament in Ottawa. It touched on Canada-U.S. relations and spoke of Canada's place on the world stage as an independent and sovereign nation. Ashley Burke reports.
A royal parade for the history books, designed to put Canada's sovereignty on full display. The pomp and pageantry of this two-day visit, all building up to the main event. The King entering the Senate to read the speech from the throne. A first for a monarch in nearly half a century. The King meeting first with a chamber packed with senators, premiers, and former prime ministers. Then starting his speech on a personal note.
Every time I come to Canada, a little more of Canada seeps into my bloodstream, and from there, straight to my heart.
In his own words, the King sending a message to the world.
I've always had the greatest admiration for Canada's unique identity, which is recognized across the world for bravery and sacrifice in defense of national values and for the diversity and kindness of Canadians.
He acknowledged this is a critical moment for Canada and ended with praise for a country he calls a force of good.
As the anthem reminds us, the true North is indeed strong and free.
Everybody was applauding, and nobody was stopping. I thought we would have clapped in there for 5 minutes.
We are not Americans, and we don't feel we have to tell people that, but it was just very clear what is distinct about our national identity.
A moment of national unity as politicians from across the country got up close.
Canada is a different country. Canada is an ambitious country. And, that's a powerful message, like I said, not only for our friends down south, but around the world.
We have an entire country that is making it clear to the U.S. that we are independent and free and not interested in being part of the United States. If this doesn't get through to President Trump, I don't know what will.
The speech from the throne also laid out the government's priorities, from building more housing to addressing the cost of living and spending more in defense to protect Canada's sovereignty. But the Conservatives leader says he needs more details ahead of a vote, and that will be the government's next big test. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
And Indigenous groups from across the country were also in Ottawa Tuesday. They're calling on the King and the Prime Minister to have meaningful engagement with First Nations leaders. Members of the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, the Assembly of First Nations, and the Confederacy of Treaty 6 Nations were united as they drummed together in Ottawa. FSIN First Vice Chief David Pratt says he's disappointed that politicians and representatives of the Crown did not come to their pipe ceremony during the King's visit. Pratt says reconciliation is more than just words, it requires action. He and other chiefs offered the King and Prime Minister an invitation to come to their territories for a meeting.
Treaty 6 150th is coming up next year. Treaty 5 150th is coming up this fall. Come and sit with us and listen to our chiefs and our leadership. They talked about Canada being an economic superpower. Well, how can Canada go out there and preach human rights and being an economic superpower when 80% of First Nations people believe in poverty in this country? That's not right.
Pratt says Indigenous people are not against development, but it needs to be done with better Indigenous consultation. He says resources and revenues also need to be shared with Indigenous people. The provincial NDP is tearing into the provincial government's handling of poverty in Saskatchewan. The NDP is pointing at the growing number of unhoused people in Saskatoon. The most recent point-in-time count found there were about 1,500 experiencing homelessness in 2024. That number has tripled in 2 years. The NDP says the province has also mishandled the Saskatchewan Income Support Program by eliminating direct rent payments.
The CIS program, designed to help people in crisis, is now pushing them over the edge. We've heard from shelters, from housing workers, from community agencies. The move away from direct payment has failed. We need to fix CIS urgently.
The Social Services Minister says the province remains committed to addressing poverty, specifically by raising the monthly CIS benefit by 2% this year, while allowing direct pay for rent and utilities for people who need it. There's a new development in the Hudson's Bay sales saga to tell you about. All of its stores will close by this coming Sunday, according to court documents filed on Tuesday. There are a total of 96 stores across the country. Both of its Saskatchewan locations have already closed. Canada's oldest company is also laying off more than 8,000 employees, approximately 89% of its current workforce, before the start of next week. About 900 staff members who work at the Bay's distribution centers will be let go on June 15th. 118 employees will remain to wind down the company. Well, you may not be a fan of Canada geese, what with all their honking and hissing and getting in the way on your walk, but it's almost certain your heart will melt whenever you see all those little goslings out there with mom and dad. It is a sure sign of spring, and weather specialist Helena Mahalik says it might start feeling a little more like summer before the week is through. She will have the details on your forecast and, of course, how all of this is impacting the forest fire situation in our province after the break. Stay with us. A Saskatoon nurse is now back in Canada after spending time working in Gaza. She was working her second term there with Doctors Without Borders when multiple hospitals were struck and destroyed.
There's nothing like the cry of a parent after they've lost their child. And sadly, everyone that I know in Gaza, everyone that I've worked with, has lost a family member. I knew from the beginning that it was a place I wanted to go back to, and the main reason is because the conflict is still ongoing. So there are still needs, huge needs. I arrived in February and the ceasefire broke about mid-March. It was unlike anything any of us could have expected. We were sleeping, and at 2 a.m. Gaza time, the bombs just started to rain down. Our clinics had mass casualty incidents. The hospital I was working in had mass casualty incidents, and it only got worse from there. Obviously, a huge increase in trauma cases. People's homes were being bombed. They obviously displaced and moved around the strip. Desalination plants throughout the strip have been targeted, so access to clean water for people is a huge challenge and continues to be, and that's only exacerbated during displacement. There is not enough food and there's not enough aid. The siege and the blockade are significantly affecting health outcomes, including malnutrition. It's like having no air. There's nothing that's coming in, and if they say there is some little coming in, it's certainly not enough to even begin to scratch the surface of the needs. You can see food prices rising. I remember when they closed the borders. I was there when the siege started, and people were anxious and rushing to the markets to try to stock up on as much as they could because they had seen this before. They knew what it was going to be like, and they didn't know when it would end, and they still don't know when it will end. And it's just getting harder and harder to find food, and you're having to compete with friends, family, loved ones for resources. They do go on, but it's obviously really challenging, and they're having to face their attackers every day. They're seeing more and more airstrikes every day, and the hospital that I worked in had been at once occupied during this war by the Israeli attack forces, and had Hebrew vandalism on the walls. And so even when people are sick and hospitalized and having to go through that, they're still having to see reminders of the result of the war. It's still ongoing all the time. I'm so lucky to have a safe place like Canada to come home to. But of course, there's a ton of guilt, and I miss the people that I work with every single day. And I think about them all the time, and I'm reading the news constantly. Doctors Without Borders likes for you to sometimes take a little break in between just to rest and recuperate, but I would love to go back if there's the opportunity.
And weather specialist Helena Mahalik joining us now. We've heard about the fires in the news, Helena, and we know the weather conditions not helping with that.
Yes, unfortunately, Ethan, the weather conditions that we're seeing, a mix of winds and heat, are really not providing any relief for the fires and actually making it worse. Let's take a look at what some of these weather conditions are that are impacting the fires. It's called the rule of 30, when winds are at 30 kilometers or higher and temperatures are at 30 degrees or higher and humidity is 30% or less. Unfortunately, that is what we're seeing in the province Tuesday. Winds are gusting at up to 30 kilometers an hour in the La Ronge area, and the rest of the province is also experiencing a breezy day, up to 40 kilometers an hour winds in central Saskatchewan. And as we can see, many areas of the north are at the 30-degree mark. The La Ronge area and Collins Bay were both some of the hottest places in the entire country today. Not much cooler in south and central Tuesday either. Temperatures hovering below the 30-degree mark. And as we can see here, air quality warnings are in effect for La Ronge, the area which the fires are at its worst. And air quality statements are in effect for many other areas of the north, like Cree Lake, Wollaston Lake, and the Pelican Narrows areas. We aren't seeing too much relief from the smoke in the next coming days, as it will be spreading. The most intense of this smoke is in the La Ronge area. We can see perhaps a chance of it spreading down into the Prince Albert area, but it's really going to be concentrated into the La Ronge and Buffalo Narrows area as we get into Wednesday and Thursday. We may see a little bit of relief in the province Tuesday, as there is a 30 to 60% chance of some showers, but we're not seeing too much of a chance. And the next few days are looking quite clear in the province, and we know that temperatures are going to continue climbing up and stay quite hot. As we look to Thursday, it's much the same thing, a very clear day in the province. We're not seeing much rain to give relief to those fires. However, as we get into Friday, we see more of a chance there. We see some rain coming in, especially in central areas. We see a chance in the La Ronge area. So we are seeing a chance of some rain there, but the winds will continue, especially for the north, where we see up to 40 kilometers an hour Wednesday. But as we get into Thursday, there's more of a chance for the southwestern parts of the province and central, like Lloydminster or Swift Current. But our heat really isn't helping. We are seeing a high pressure system coming into the province, so we will see the next few days temperatures at 30 degrees, Ethan, and the UV will be at 8 or higher. So definitely some sunscreen is needed, and we will be keeping an eye on these fires.
Yeah, we sure will. Okay, Helena, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ethan.
Well, on a bit of a lighter note now, bird lovers are flocking to a park in Vancouver. They are hoping to catch a glimpse of a family of owls that have taken up residence. And as Karen Larson reports, the feathered friends are taking their newfound celebrity in stride.
They flock to Douglas Park by the dozens, carrying binoculars, cell phones, cameras with giant telephoto lenses.
Nikon Z8 with a 600mm lens.
People who give a hoot about, well, creatures that hoot. A family of barred owls who have taken up residence in a park tree.
It's all over social media right now. Yeah. So I love birds. I have birds.
Some birders I knew heard about it, and everybody kind of passes the word.
It's a big delight for me. I'm a birder, so you don't see owls in the city too often.
Depending on who you talk to, owls in this family consist of a mom, a dad, and 2, possibly 3 fledglings. On our trip to Douglas Park, the little ones were nowhere to be seen, but an onlooker was happy to share a photo of one captured earlier. According to locals, the owl prowl crowd has been well behaved, and the feathered celebrities mildly amused by all the attention.
It's not really bothering the owl. If they were really bothered by it, they wouldn't be nesting here.
It makes it fun to come out in the day and have a quick look.
Yeah, it's better than the rats we get around here and the coyotes. You know, for once we have like real wildlife.
As a precaution, the city has erected a fence and signs around the owl tree, asking people to be quiet and respectful, to get their photo, and then move on.
There's 4 owls out in the open. It's just gorgeous.
Karen Larson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, what sounds like Mozart, or maybe Oliver, can be heard outside this farm store in a southern English town. This is the London Vegetable Orchestra. Yes, you heard that right. Musicians create instruments carved out of locally sourced produce, including carrots, zucchini, and bell peppers. And when musical carrots go soft, well, popping them into water makes them firm again. The orchestra has even performed for King Charles, who's known to have given it a try. Stay with us. We have more news and a final look at the forecast when we come back. The Saskatchewan Roughriders were back on the practice field at Mosaic Stadium on Tuesday, getting ready for a final preseason game against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The Riders are heading for a rematch of last week's game. They lost 15-9 in Winnipeg. This will be the team's final chance to shake off the rust before the games count for real. Head coach Corey Mace has not made a determination on play time, but says it's important for every player to get some reps.
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, there'll be a mix of, just like last week, you know, I thought we had a healthy mix of some starters and some young guys. You know, it'll be the same. You know, whoever's going to be out there, the preparation is executing the expectations of what we look for in all phases of the football. So, you know, regardless of who it is or what quarter it's in, who's in there, we're evaluating the exact same thing. You got a job to do, and we want to see you do it.
Kickoff is at 7 p.m. Friday at Mosaic Stadium. The final cuts will then be made to the roster by Saturday. The green and white need to trim it down to 56 players. And Helena, I'm thinking it's going to be a hot night for that game.
Definitely, Ethan. We're seeing overnight lows above average and very hot conditions. Let's take a look at what's in store for the city of Regina. It's going to be a really sunny week. There might be a few days of cloud coverage, but mostly we're in for a lot of sun, bringing temperatures to above average for this time of year. The rest of the work week, we're looking at hovering around the 30-degree mark, and it's similar as we get into the weekend. Temperatures just below that 30-degree mark. As we get into Monday, we're going to see some wind and some cloud coverage, maybe bringing temperatures down to back to the 20-degree mark. And overnight lows are going to be quite hot for this time of year, almost 10 degrees above average. So definitely some warm nights and a few breezy days as well. Saskatoon is also in for a week of sun, and temperatures are going to be even close to above 30 degrees some days. And as we get into the weekend, temperatures will be quite similar. Again, Monday, some cloud coverage and wind are bringing temperatures down back to seasonal for this time of year. A few breezy days, and temperatures are going to be well above seasonal for this time of year. Ethan, we may even see a few days of overnight lows closer to 20 degrees. So that is some quite significant temperatures for sure.
Ooh, yeah, open the windows, air conditioning, whatever. I guess you got to do it.
Anything you can do to stay cool.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Helena, thanks so much.
Thanks, Ethan.
And that is it for us. For more news anytime, you can always head to our website or YouTube channel. And of course, you can always download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching.